charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 6, having occurred May 17, 1977, in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 1222.5. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a knife in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 12022. Count 20. The charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 7, which occurred on May 28, 1977, in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 1222.5. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a knife in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 12022. Count 21. The charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 8, having occurred on October 1st, 1977, in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 1222.5. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a knife in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 12022. Count 22. The charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 9, having occurred on October 21st, 1977, in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 12022.5. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a knife in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 12022. Count 23. Charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 10, having occurred October 7th, 1978, in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. Count 24. The charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 11, which occurred on October 13th, 1978, in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. Count 25. Charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 12, having occurred October 28, 1978, in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, violation of Penal Code Section 12022.5, and that he personally used a knife in the course of that robbery as well, violation of Penal Code Section 12022. Count 26. The charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 13, having occurred on June 11th, 1979, in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted he personally used a firearm in the course of that robbery, a violation of Penal Code Section 1222.5. I'm going to hear from, we're going to hear from the people on this imposition of sentencing. I believe the district attorney from Contra Costa County wishes to be heard first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dinah Beckton, District Attorney for Contra Costa County. Over 4 decades, that's a long time to wait for justice to be served. Finally, we have arrived at that day, the day when those who have waited so very long will hear that Joseph DeAngelo will now serve the rest of his life behind bars. The boogeyman, the man whose horrific, unspeakable crimes devastated the lives of so many people, lives that will never be the same, lives forever changed. Moments, hours of terror that can never be erased or forgotten. I want to underscore the strength of our victims and their families, the courage that they've displayed over the years, and their courage this week to come forward, share in open court with all of us the pain and the agony that they have endured over the years. After today's sentencing, Mr. DeAngelo will never threaten our victims again. He will never harm another soul. His evil actions are hard to describe and recount. The victims in this case bravely told the court this week the lasting trauma and pain caused by DeAngelo's horrific actions. As a former Superior Court judge myself, hearing from victims during the sentencing phase of a case is powerful and very sobering. Those whose lives were forever changed deserved a day in court. And I want to thank the court for allowing each victim who had the courage and the determination to come forward, allowing them the time to speak. We appreciate the opportunity for their voices to be heard. Thank you, Your Honor. Let us not forget the important words this week from these men and women and their families. Their words were hard to listen to due to the depravity displayed by Mr. DeAngelo, who preyed upon these victims. I appreciate the courage that it took to come forward. Just emphasizing a few statements from our victims in Contra Costa County. One said, "I survived and thrived because of the love and the support of friends and family, for which I can never thank them enough." Now, here we are, all strong women, not victims, having our say to a madman. Another said, "Finally, I can go forward. I have the justice I have been waiting so long for. I never thought I would get it." And last but not least, one said, "We are committed and determined not to let these hours in October 1978 define who we are and what we were to become." I am so encouraged to hear that by finally seeing justice served, our victims now have hope. They have hope for a future. The criminal justice system is often complex, long-winded, and slow. In this case, for decades, DeAngelo eluded capture. However, thanks to the task force under Sacramento District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert, he was brought into custody. Law enforcement officials never gave up hope that we could bring the Golden State Killer to justice. The history in this case and the Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office history is tied to our former cold case investigator, Paul Hull. Mr. Hull spent decades, much of his career, and he played a tremendous role in solving this case and bringing us to this day of reckoning. I want to express my gratitude for Paul Hull's tireless work on this case on behalf of the victims across the state of California. The entire prosecution team spent countless hours to bring this case to a resolution and to assist the victims throughout this entire process, including our victim witness advocates and our attorneys. And I thank the team for the important work that you have done to bring this case to an end. The crimes spanned over 13 years that we know of. The seriousness and the gravity of the offenses, the psychological harm, the pain and the brutality of these offenses requires nothing less than the imposition of the maximum sentence. The victims must be assured that Mr. DeAngelo will never, ever walk this earth again as a free man. Your Honor, I stand for the people to respectfully thank the court for imposing the maximum amount of time allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Would the district attorney from Orange County wish to be heard?
Good morning, Your Honor. If it pleases the court, I cannot thank you enough on behalf of the people of Orange County and the people of the state of California for your grace and your patience, Your Honor. You have been amazing, and I know everybody in this room agrees just how much you have allowed us so much leeway and courtesy during these proceedings. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge you and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I also would like to thank my team, Debbie Lloyd, Dennis Conway, Pat Dixon, Investigator Hutchcraft, Investigator Doyle, Law Clerk Rebecca Malkin, and of course I want to thank Anne Marie and her team. And I want to acknowledge, Your Honor, in public just the amazing work of the district attorneys who work collaboratively to bring this case to justice. Many people don't know there's two interesting things about a case where a death penalty is on the line. One is that is a decision of the elected district attorneys and no one else. And in California, the only sentence that's handed down by a jury is death. Yesterday marked 40 years to the date that a stranger walked into Patty and Keith Harrington's Dana Point home and robbed those 3-month newlyweds of their life. Yesterday. The day the two brothers testified about their youngest brother, Keith. They never made it to their first wedding anniversary. Manuela Whittam spent 28 short years on this earth, never knowing the joy of motherhood, and you heard yesterday that her surviving husband never lead an appropriate life after that, until he died. Janelle Cruz, 18 years old, life was ended before she realized her dreams of graduating from college or picking out a wedding dress. Natural things we all live for in our lives. For the last 3 days, we heard about the 13 lives that were cut short through murder. We heard of the memories that were never made. We heard of the dozens and dozens of sexual assault victims who had to go through that depraved act while some of their husbands watched, which is beyond comprehension for me. As he was destroying your lives, he got to be on his boat, blow out birthday candles, hold his granddaughter. But all the time in the back of his mind, he knew we would get. Sir, in 2006, when I was the chairman of the committee that oversaw state prisons in the state assembly for the state of California, I watched the last man executed in the San Quentin death chamber. I was a witness to that death. When I was elected district attorney and this case became mine on behalf of the Orange County citizens, I wanted one thing. I wanted to wait those 25 years, and when I was at 85 or beyond, depending on how long it took for you to appeal your death sentence, I wanted them to wheel me in on my wheelchair. And instead of just staring straight forward in some glazed over eyes, I wanted to stare at you and watch you silently slip into the night. Never again to take away anybody's dreams that you ruined and the nightmares you created. I wanted to watch that. You made it personal, and it was personal for me on behalf of all these people. I honestly believe that this person, not even a person, this beast deserved the ultimate punishment of death. But we met with our victims. We knew the age of the case. We knew how long it took to solve. And we knew that this was the right thing to do so you could all be here today in your lifetime, as long as you had this opportunity. Today, this event today is a sentencing. Earlier in the week was a celebration of life on behalf of the victim. But today is a sentence. And it's meant for the victims who are silently now in heaven, or those of you who, thank God, are still here on earth, who now can become free from the shackles that you have been forced to endure since your paths intersected with the devil. Today, it's the devil who will be condemned to be behind bars for the rest of his life. He will never be free, thank God. He may have destroyed lives, but he has not destroyed memories. And I'm so grateful for the stories that all of you shared this week on behalf of your loved ones and behalf of yourselves. But for the victims whose voices have been stolen, and the family members who sadly ran out of time and could not make it here today, I want you to know that there are 13 angels watching this today. And they're with us right now. They have this opportunity to see this too. I would ask that as we are in the presence of these 13 who have left this earth but have gone to a better place, that you join me in a moment of silence for them and for all those who are still here with us or who may have passed but have experienced this horror and this nightmare. You would bow your heads, I pray. On behalf of the people of Orange County and the state of California, Your Honor, again, please accept our just heartfelt thank you for the way you've conducted this court, your personnel. We're so appreciative.
Thank you, Mr. Spitzer. Would the district attorney representing Santa Barbara wish to be heard?
Thank you, Your Honor.
25 years ago, I prosecuted my first sexual assault case in which the recipient witness was a loved one of the victims. At that point, I assumed the only traumatized person would be the victim. 3 groups of people in this courtroom know that that assumption is wrong. The recipient witnesses of crimes committed by the defendant, the prosecutors, and the defendant himself. I know the recipient witnesses know that because they lived through it. I know the prosecutors know that because they listened carefully to those witnesses. And I know the defendant knows that because he is driven to inflict the greatest amount of pain that he possibly can. And therefore, it wasn't enough for him to rape or beat or shoot his victims. He wanted to take inflicting human pain to the highest level possible. Therefore, he often ensured that their loved ones saw or heard his victims being tortured or killed. That's just who Joe DeAngelo is. My best friend, LADA Jackie Lacey, recently told me, if you really want to hurt me, hurt someone I love. Well, this defendant really wanted to hurt. He really wanted to hurt as many people as he could, and he did just that. Around the same time that I prosecuted that case, I prosecuted my first rape of an intoxicated person case. Again, at that point, I assumed that if she couldn't remember being raped, that had to be better than remembering the gory details. Once again, I was wrong. And how do I know that? Because the victim told me so. She said, every morning when I wake up, my first thought is that something terrible happened to me. I just don't know what. I just don't know what. I don't think I can ever get over this thing until I know those details. And then she started to cry. And a very long minute went by, and she said, I'm actually jealous of rape victims who remember being raped. Yesterday, as I listened to Debbie Dominguez's powerful, powerful words about not being able to enter her home or know the details of what happened. And then I thought about Doug Domingo, Brian Sanchez, Dr. Offerman, all of whom are here today. And then all of the other victims' loved ones who will never know the details of what happened to their child, their mother, their father, their uncle, their friend. And I thought maybe some of them also felt they couldn't begin their healing process until they knew all the details. To them, I humbly suggest you don't. I too have experienced great loss. I too experienced that. And I believe you, like me, have a hole in your heart that you hope will never heal. Because you love them. You love them so very much. And I believe that is what you need to know. Proceed with your healing process. What you need to know is what you already know. In life, you loved them and they loved you. And now that this case is finally over, perhaps what you need to concentrate on, the details of that love. Focus on the things that made them lovable and allow yourself to let those memories make you smile again. I believe it is possible. True healing can come from that knowledge. Because knowing that you are loved and that you were loved is truly the most powerful knowledge of all. Again, thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Would the district attorney representing Tulare County wish to be heard at this time?
Good morning, Tim Ward, Tulare County District Attorney. Your Honor, when your gavel falls today, this sentence will be final, and this case will soon then be viewed through the prism of history. And as we have seen and heard this week, the defendant slowly ceases to be the focal point of that story. Instead, my prayer going forward is the legacy which remains will focus on the triumph and the resiliency displayed by the survivors that we've heard from this week. Though questions will inevitably remain, we should continue to be steadfastly focused on the compassion justly due these families assembled here today. Though these despicable horrors began in Tulare County, we will not be defined by evil. Instead, our entire community stands silently alongside the Snelling, the Hupp, the McGowan families, and all families here today and families across this state. In searching for some positive message to remain, I say this: the triumphant spirit of these families loudly cries across this state and across the entire world in one unified, single voice, crying out to other families who have been victimized, yet they patiently, agonizingly await their day in court. In that unified voice, the world is now told, never give up. You are not forgotten. Like many families that we've heard from this week, others across this nation are living a never-ending, nightmarish journey, a journey of continually closed doors. Today, they are shown and they are told, never give up hope. As science and technology evolve, the space for evil like this to operate within gets smaller and smaller. Simply put, the DNA will never forget. And by God's grace, may the doors of justice open for other families. That voice of hope is the true legacy that shall remain, and it shall not be silenced, ever. On behalf of the Snelling, the Hupp, and the McGowan families, the Visalia Police Department, and the entire Tulare County community, Your Honor, I want to thank you for providing a model of judicial decorum that has shown remarkable deference to the families and the survivors this week. You have given the state a glimpse into why we have a system of justice in the first place, and that is to serve victims. You have allowed their voices to resonate so loudly, and you have provided a model that other courts would do well to emulate.
Thank you, sir.
As District Attorney of Tulare County, it is my honor to speak on behalf of the victims and survivors listed in count 1 of the complaint and give voice to Professor Snelling and Officer McGowan, who cannot do so today. But with their voice, I hereby ask you, Your Honor, to sentence this defendant to the maximum allowed under the law.
Thank you, sir. Would the District Attorney representing Ventura County wish to be heard?
Good morning, Your Honor. I, too, want to thank you for the courtesy and kindness you so graciously extended to each of the victims over the last 4 days. Your Honor, as we have witnessed
feel the same. Recently, a contractor in my home
is standing by live at the county courthouse. She's actually in the room today following the sentencing. And let's turn it over to Madison now about what she has seen and heard throughout the day. Madison.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. We are here at Sac State. We are in recess at the moment. Things will resume very shortly. But what has really stood out to me is the feeling and the tone and the
I remember nights when my mom was so tired, but she couldn't go to bed because several of my brother's buddies were gathered to discuss girls and dating, and Mom always made time for them. She answered their questions and listened to them. Joe was there on several occasions. He came to the house quite often. After joining the military, he always spent time with the family when home on leave. He brought Mom gifts from different ports of call. When Joseph graduated from high school, joined the military, became a police officer, got married and had children, the entire family was proud of him, just like we were with every accomplishment of each other. Joseph was a close friend, another brother, respectful to Mom and Pop, and always polite. He was helpful and considerate. I never heard a foul word come out of his mouth. When Joe married and their first child came along, my sister and I took turns babysitting for them. Joe would be sleeping or grocery shopping or baking or paying bills. Sometimes he would be working on his radio-controlled boats. Not just a kit, but 6 to 7 foot boats he would take to Nimbus Lake, and we'd go along to watch. When we were babysitting at noon, we drove to the McGeorge School of Law so Sherry could nurse the baby. Joseph paid us well and was appreciative of our time. He was a good father. He sent his girls to a Montessori school in their early years, and he paid for their college. While they were young, he paid for horseback riding, skating, and supported them in whatever they did. He cooked for them, kept a clean house and a neat yard. Through all this, Joe never forgot to visit Mom and Pop and come to the house on holidays. When Mom and Dad passed away, he came to visit my sister, and I cried. He always told us before he left, "Let me know if you need anything. If there's anything I can do." He always left us hugs when he arrived and left. This is from a niece. As I sit down to write this letter, I realize there's only one place to start. I wish my deepest sympathy, sorrow, and pain relief to all of the victims. I cannot imagine what any of you endured. I'm simply writing this letter to tell you I do not know the person known as the Golden State Killer. In no time did I see anything that would have led me to believe that. I know him as my Uncle Joe, whom I love clearly. My Uncle Joe was always my hero, the one I couldn't wait to see. I hunted as a child with him. We went crawdad fishing in the canal, ate pizzas, got ice cream, just plain had good times. We camped together as a family. He always made it a point to attend any special occasions I had. My wedding and my daughter's first birthday, to name a couple. I always felt that my uncle loved me and still do. I personally feel that someone else is inside of him who I do not know. Our last visit was 3 weeks before his arrest. We spent much time together talking, and I will cherish it forever. Uncle Joe, I will always remember your last words to me. I love you, sweetie, and I'll see you soon. The day we found out about the arrest, my mom called me, and I rushed right over to her house as I heard she collapsed. The detectives were there. We've been harassed by media, investigators, and people who blame us for something we had no knowledge of. I believed I knew my uncle, and I am still in shock. I feel for my cousins and family, as nobody understands, and we try to make sense of it, but you just can't. I do not know the person who committed those crimes. I know my uncle, who I love and always love. There's so much more I could say about what a wonderful uncle, dad, son, brother, and great uncle to my kids he was. My heart is crushed, and I will never be the same trusting person. I no longer have trust for anyone. It's really hard to end this letter, but I guess all I can say is I'm very sorry to the victims. I can't imagine what they went through. I love my Uncle Joe as I knew him, and that will never change because I can't wrap my head around the fact that someone so caring and loving could have done those things. Mr. DeAngelo would like to make a brief statement.
DeAngelo?
I've listened to all your statements, each one of them. And I'm truly sorry to everyone I've heard. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Defense submitted.
As he has desired since the beginning of this case, Mr. DeAngelo has accepted responsibility for his crimes by pleading guilty and has even admitted uncharged crimes. He's now prepared to be sentenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kress. Reference to Sacramento Probation Department for pre-sentence investigation report was waived at the time of plea, and a 1203.C report was requested or will be requested. Courts also considered the sentencing memorandums submitted by the defense as well as the people. With respect to the approval of this disposition, the court approves of this plea. I have considered the comments of counsel, the facts in this case, as well as the overall circumstances of this disposition. I've considered the defendant's age, the fact there are inmates currently on death row and have been so for 30 years. I have considered the fact that there is currently a moratorium on the death penalty in California. Furthermore, this disposition does give survivors and their loved ones an opportunity to have their words heard and not to endure the unimaginable of Lyman Smith, a violation of Penal Code Section 187. That murder having been committed minimum of 7 years. Regarding the weapons enhancement, that in the course of that kidnapping, the defendant personally used a knife, violation of Penal Code Section 12022, the